Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. First, to say a big thank you to all the organizers, FES, and partners for this very timely, relevant, and topical issue that is election 2020. Compilation of a voters register within a COVID-19 pandemic and situation. And as I was thinking through what to write and planning my paper, I was reviewing the past occurrences. The first is the risk and exposure to the coronavirus. The risk of every single Ghanaian who attempts or goes through this voter registration exercise. Also, on daily basis, we have the systematic occurrence of violence and assault being reported during this voter registration. Never in the history of our country have we encountered such a level of violence and assault during a voter registration exercise. There's also intimidation and use of force and deployment of an unusually high level of security forces, especially along the Ghana-Togo border, and Justice has spoken to that. There's actually harassment of the residents, some residents of the Volta region, and it's actually ethnicity-based harassment, ethnicity-based intimidation, ethnicity-based discrimination, all in one specific region, the Volta region, and principally against the people of the Volta region. And I agree with Justice that this is a deliberate attempt to disenfranchise some people in the Volta region. It is very dangerous for our cohesion and our stability and unity as Ghanaians. And I strongly condemn what the NPP government is doing in the Volta region. We have concerns about the COVID protocols. And also, I would also recount some of the stories I have heard and personal experiences. So most of yesterday night, I did not sleep because one of my friends, a team student leader, together with 4 other of his colleagues, had to barricade themselves in the office, the campaign office of the parliamentary candidates, the NDC parliamentary candidates for Ayawaso West Wogon John Dumelo at Okonkwo. This was because armed thugs had surrounded the campaign office, and it was dangerous for them to leave that office. It was only at 5 minutes past 11 that I called and he informed me that the NDC National Youth Organizer had actually arranged and had come to evacuate them with a police patrol team. And that was when they were safe and they could leave. Why should this happen during a simple voter registration exercise? Yesterday also, one of my colleagues told me about the arrest of his uncle in the North Dai district, the North Dai constituency. What was his crime? He's a gong beater, and he had been asked by the Honorable Honorable Assembly Member to make an announcement about the registration and reiterate that no foreigners will be allowed to register. He is now on remand and awaiting trial. These are the unfortunate stories of our 2020 voter registration. One would also ask why a police officer who knows the law with impunity can actually slap a prospective female voter or female who is only seeking to go and register. But we saw the video on social media and we have heard that there's an investigation going on. We don't know what is actually happening. These are the narratives, unfortunate narratives of this 2020 voter registration exercise. How is it impacting on women, on the elderly, on persons with disability and other vulnerable groups? Are they likely to register? Has the Electoral Commission of Ghana put adequate arrangements in place to enable them to register? Is there a safe environment devoid of violence? Are they at risk and exposure to the COVID-19 virus? We need to focus on these vulnerable groups for obvious reasons. And we need to say that, yes, the right to vote is a gender-neutral right enshrined in our Constitution and in our laws. But the voting processes affect women differently from men. And if you remember, it took a long time, over 50 years, for even women to gain the right to vote. And that is why for every national election process, there's a need to pay particular attention to engendering the processes, making the processes gender sensitive, and ensuring that the vulnerable demographic groups are able to exercise their franchise, are able to register, that we are able to get facilities or registration centers that are disability friendly. But we have some obstacles, and we need to find out what the obstacles are. There are issues with documentation as to whether all our demographic groups have the Ghana card or can get people to guarantee for them and have proof of residence. Justice has spoken about some of the challenges. We also have to look at the socio-cultural dimensions. We don't have that many studies in Ghana. In fact, I didn't even read one or so of whether our Muslim sisters have challenges in terms of they having to remove the veil to take pictures, in terms of the privacy of the setup of the voter registration center, and whether the privacy setup is actually satisfactory. But the key challenge is the time. Women, for instance, are housekeepers. Now, because of COVID, the children are in the house. And you can spend 2 hours for the voter registration exercise. If you're lucky, 1 hour. Will the mother, will the carer be able to take time off to go and spend 2 hours at the registration center? We have long queues. So to what extent have these domestic responsibilities affected the ability of the woman to go and register? What about the customary practices and the religious norms? Have these proved to be obstacles? Access for persons with disability, that is especially those with physical disabilities. Are all the facilities and the voter registration sites disability friendly? Well, for where I went to register yesterday, it was not disability friendly. We know that over the years, the Electoral Commission has put in place interventions to enable persons with disability exercise their right to vote. So from 2004 onwards, they came up with a tactile balloting for the blind. So are there any other interventions or provisions made that will enable persons with disability move in and register? We have to find out. Incidents of violence are a big deterrent, and we've seen a lot of incidents of violence for this particular registration. And especially women are reluctant to vote, to go and register or vote when there's violence. What about the elderly and the frail? The Electoral Commission came up with a notice that nursing mothers, the elderly and persons with disability could go to the district electoral office to register. But this also has its own issues, because for some, the cost of transportation, and I'll use Adenta. If somebody is coming from Kose, the person will have to take one vehicle, stop at Adenta lorry station, and take another vehicle to the district election office. So transport cost is also a problem. Even trying to get somebody to aid the aged person to go to the district electoral office may also be a problem. So we know that the Electoral Commission has put in this measure where the elderly can go to the district education office. But then we are not seeing a clear, systematic guideline as to whether the elderly, nursing mothers, and persons with disability can opt out of that and register at the nearest registration center. What are the guidelines on that? So yesterday I did a spin around in my community in Adenta, in Malejo. The special groups in the Malejo voter registration center, the special groups of the elderly are not being allowed, they're not being given any priority, and they're not being allowed to jump the queue. They have to join the queue. In Amahia, there's a special queue for the aged and pregnant women. In New Adenta, there's a challenge. The elderly are not being allowed to jump the queue, but the party agents are intervening at times. In Bentana, they are given priority when they arrive. In Ni Ashale, Happy Home, a maximum of 20 elderly persons or nursing mothers are given priority. And in another registration center, 5 of them are able to go at a go, and then for the normal queue, another 5 are also able to go. That is Asra, the registration center. My center is called Perez in Adenta, and on the first day I went there, and the police officer said, no, all persons with disability, all elderly persons and nursing mothers are supposed to go to the district office. So as the police officer, I will not allow any of these groups to register here. If they come here, then they have to join the queue. And obviously, there was an old man who could not obviously join the queue. And so this poses a lot of problems for the elderly, nursing mothers, and also persons with disability. Availability of data. It was difficult for me to get any data on even the numbers of women who have voted as against the numbers of men who have voted. Because if we want to assess and find out whether these obstacles are hindering or preventing women from registering, we need to look at the desegregated data of our voters register. You go onto the website of the Electoral Commission, and there is no gender desegregated data on women voters, on men voters, on the elderly, or persons with disability. I had to make a phone call to one of the directors, and he assured me that the data exists. But it will be very good to make that data available to the public. I was able to get that for Adenta, and can say that for this voter registration exercise. For the first phase, 20,545 male have registered and 24,837 females have registered. So obviously, we have more females registering than males. Can we extrapolate this and say this is what is happening throughout Ghana? We don't really know. And what accounts for the increase, the more women than men? That means we're doing something good. So we really need to get the data to be able to do this. In terms of election monitoring, and we're getting Codeo coming up soon to give us an account, they've come up with their first report on phase 1. I also reviewed the report by the Coalition of Civil Society Groups on Election Monitoring, and I didn't read any information on how women, the elderly, persons with disability, how they have fared in terms of this registration. So I didn't see any finding on their experiences, and it's very critical that as one of the key election monitoring civil society bodies in Ghana, Codeo should also incorporate some data, some information, and finding on the experiences of women, persons with disabilities, and also nursing mothers and the elderly. Exposure and vulnerability to COVID-19. Codeo has a comprehensive report on that, but I'll share my personal experience. I was very apprehensive, and so I joined the queue. I was able to wash my hands. There was no tissue, but there was washing soap. The temperature was taken. But my challenge was with where I had to do the fingerprint, and the surface was not cleaned. I was watching when the woman was arranging it. It was not cleaned. The gloves were not changed. I asked them, how often do you change the gloves? And they said after every hour. So that means X number of people are catered or are registered, their biometrics are taken, and it's the same gloves used. So I had concerns about that aspect of the voter registration exercise. Basically, my recommendations are that the Electoral Commission should make very clear the guidelines for nursing mothers, elderly, persons with disability who would opt to register at the nearest voter registration center. They should be very clear, and I strongly recommend that they should be given priority. I know the party agents on both sides are assisting, but if we have clear instructions from the Electoral Commission, that would help a lot. Physical accessibility by the persons with disability is still an issue in certain registration centers, and the Electoral Commission will have to look at that. The COVID-19 protocols should be assessed. It should be ongoing. It should be assessed so that we don't, through this voter registration exercise, spread the virus, and we need to avoid infection. And there should be disclosure of data on children, no, not on children, on the elderly, on aged, and persons with disability, and women, so that we can assess the extent to which they are able to exercise their human rights to vote and their rights to register as voters in Ghana. Thank you.